Welcome back to Hacker Hangouts on a Saturday morning. It has been far too long, and I miss all of you very much. And mostly, Gowrie, it's been too long. You've been all over the world.
Yeah, long time no see, friends. I've been traveling a bit, up on the plum farm, planting 80 trees for the yearly plant. Went to Germany on some business. Published a didn't publish, but did a talk at International Supercompute. That was fun. Yeah, it's just been a busy couple of months.
Yeah, did you do the was it the Stein holding competition? You showed me
Oh,
that, and that takes some
that
serious
was
muscles.
No, that was years ago. That was that we have a local beer garden that does that every year. Like an actual European style beer garden and everything. And so I go there with my friends every year for Oktoberfest, and we do the Stein holding competition. They even have a cask that they tap and they just let run every year, just like they do at the regular
Yeah.
Oktoberfest. I don't know if that's technically legal or not.
Like we won't mention names. All right, we have so much to cover, and there's like three things, and it's funny because I thought at first these were all completely separated, but the more I thought about them, like I think these are connected. And this isn't like conspiracy nut, like these are all connected to the Illuminati controlling everything, but like Apple Vision, which was like a big announcement for Apple and the internet as the webosphere is blowing up as like this is a crap product. This is revolutionary and one more thing type of thing. The Reddit API nonsense that's going on. And then AI. While this one is like we've talked about it and whatnot, there's a technology anyone who's listening can check it out. It's called LangChain. And it's one which I think is going to open up a whole new realm of innovation. And I think that's where like these things start getting interconnected. But let's talk about Apple Vision, which is kind of a first one. Actually, I have one story before that. When we tried to set this chat up, Hacker Hangouts today, we went back and forth saying, like, are we going to be able to throw it together? And Gowrie said, let's just do the two of us. I've missed you. And I sent him the song, Just the Two of Us.
Just the two of us.
And I have a relationship with this song because it's stuck in my head permanently because I had to call the IRS one time. In 4 hours into the hold music, it was 4 hours on hold, about 2 hours in, it hit me. This song is just on repeat. Just the two of us. We can make it if you try. Just the two of us. And the best part of it was around the 2 hour mark where I broke. My brain broke and I started laughing because I envisioned it's GLaDOS, who is the thing running the music, and I'm like, it's just the two of us. There's no one working at the IRS. There's no one there. It is the robot singing to me right now. It's just the two of us. And that was it. And I just snapped and I started laughing. And Melissa's like, what happened? Do you get disconnected? I'm like, no. It's just the two of us. It's just the two of us. So when it came to like Apple Vision release,
I just got to say that is top tier trolling by the IRS. They don't want to talk to you, so they leave one song on repeat, and it's just the two of us. Woo, buddy, that is some spicy meatballs.
So like when it came to Apple Vision, I don't know why I made the connection, but like people have made the connection. Casey Neistat did this amazing video, if you haven't seen it, where he intermingles the Apple Vision release with Ready Player One. And it's like they stole some shots, but his cut of it was so perfect where he intermingles between the release and then Ready Player One and these people falling over. And have you, Gowrie, I know you've been traveling. Have you had a chance to look at Apple Vision, what they called, what they released, and then like what the idea is? And if not, I'll pitch it to you.
Look, the only thing I know about Apple Vision is that it looks like a pair of ski goggles. And I stand by my old point of no one's going to pay to wear ski goggles all day, every day. Yeah, certainly not. What is the price point? Like $2,500 or some crazy amount?
$3,500.
Yeah, no one's gonna. I'll let you pitch it to me. Go for it.
No, it's a V1 product. And here's the funny part. Like, if I got something like this, I feel like I would be using it for like the dumbest. The thing which excites me with this is not like
porn,
gaming, or Or like I can see a big screen and see that. No, it's like if I want to relax and watch TV, the last thing I want to do is strap this thing to my face. And if I'm going to go on
Exactly.
an airplane and watch a movie, I'm not going to be like, guys, especially with like where there's a screen in front of it, which like duplicates your eyes. Like that's going to be awkward. And I think the thing though, where I get excited about is each eye is over 4K. So take your entire monitor, scrunch it down to like a 1 inch thing, and it's in your eye. I got weirdly excited thinking about like going, oh, I can have 8 monitors. I can have 13 monitors. I legitimately could have virtual monitors and have the text readable on all of them. And I think from the productivity standpoint, this
That's
could
awful.
act. What do you think? Have you tried it?
That is the screen equivalent of having 30,000 tabs open in Firefox.
I mean,
That's awful.
I have one monitor. I only use one monitor. I fantasize about more
You're
monitors.
bad and you should feel bad. I have 3 monitors and one of them's a 40-inch 4K screen, so you should fix that.
Do you actually use them? I always feel like the third
Yeah.
monitor just kind of like sits there and does nothing.
No, I have two vertical monitors with four different chat programs up at all times, and then I have the big monitor in the center is split up into 4 quadrants. So I have 4 browsers open at any given time. So at most, I can see someone making use of 8 panels. And like 2 of those are like one's for email and one's for calendar. These are non-dynamic things. They're just there for me to see. Once you get past like a certain number, and this is why I explain it with tabs, right? Like once you get past a certain number of tabs, you're no longer adding productivity. You're actually creating a problem for yourself because you don't know where you put things.
But doesn't you wouldn't use one of these things for like think you travel. You're bringing your laptop. Because like one of the coolest things for me was they had you wear the monitor or you wear the vision, the Apple Vision, which is I think is a terrible name. But you look at your computer and it pulls your screen from your computer up in front of you. Like
Well, first of all, no, because I don't buy Apple products. 1. And and 2, when I travel, I listen to books.
well, no, I'm saying
The
like
end.
you have to do a project. You're sitting in the hotel room. Like that doesn't excite you that you could go, I had at my laptop and have multiple monitors in front of you. Like meanwhile,
No.
you had to haul around a 3500. No, like
No.
that one starts
Yeah,
exciting
see,
me.
I'm the opposite of so many developers out there. I open up I open up 2 tabs of Vim, and that's how I write software. Right? Like I don't need VS Code. I don't need all this fancy crap because it just gets in the way for me.
I
So
mean,
yeah, you can call me a Luddite. I'm not excited by this because it's the same as every other VR headset, in my opinion.
I I think it's going to be different. I'm probably not going to be the early adopter. I would take exception to Vim because Nano is the far superior text editor.
If they gave me a free MacBook and a free Apple Vision headset, I still wouldn't use it.
I think how this relates though is like, so I want to talk about Reddit because I want to talk about Apple Vision in the sense of like, I think it's an interesting product. I think there's a lot of possibilities. For me, I think it's productivity. From what I've heard, it's super heavy. The one I was interested in is you can do FaceTime with it. And I was thinking right when they said we can do FaceTime with it, going, oh, that's really interesting. But how does this work for the person wearing the headset? And you flip around the headset, you scan your face, and it comes up with this virtual persona. But unlike, we'll say, the metaverse, which comes up with like the cartoon, like me,
Yeah.
like we me thing, it's
yeah.
like actually looks like you. But I feel like there's that whole like thing
Uncanny
that
Valley.
people pick up on. What was it? Where it's like it looks close enough to a human, but just enough off.
Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's like it looks close, and although it's just creepy.
yeah, and I think that's what you're going to experience with this whole FaceTime thing. But like, again, I'm always for more things that will interconnect us, like conversations like this. But then again, I go back to the conference bridges worked fine for our company for a very long time, and video chats work fine. I don't think I need a virtual persona of you to be able to like communicate better.
I think the innovation in the realm of meetings, like virtual meetings, capped out at video. And the reason why I say that is because I have eyes to look at now. I can look at you in your eyes. It's not as the same or as present as being in person, but I now feel like I'm at least talking to a person with a face, with eyes. I can read your expressions. I have more or less everything I need in order to have a normal conversation with you. That wasn't really possible with voice bridges. What do you get out of VR on top of that? Maybe eventually you'll have virtual presenters that can stand on a stage, and that'll be interesting because then you'll get the full body mechanics, but not everyone's going to have to wear a VR headset for those things, right? So like
Yeah.
what's the point? And like the amount of value you get out of it versus the amount it costs just doesn't make any sense to me when I look at it. And this is actors background a little bit. It's just like the personal connection really caps out at when I can look you in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already got that. I'm doing it right now. We have the split screen. I can look at your side. I can look at my side to make sure I don't look like a clown. I do, so I look back at you, and that's what that's enough for me, and that's enough for like 99% of people. That's why I keep laughing every time people talk. Oh, well, think about virtual meetings. No, I don't want any more meetings in my life. I don't want to think about meetings more than I absolutely have to. Stop asking me to think about meetings.
Okay. I think the make or break for the product, and that's why they're releasing it now at their worldwide developer conference, is that the make or break is going to be the development, is going to be the software. Like the hardware is super impressive. The one which I'm curious about though is like Apple stated this like 3 times. The privacy, like everything's done on the device, everything's done on the device. The thing which terrifies me with a product like this is that you have cameras pointing out front, which are recording using LiDAR to determine how far things are, cameras to record the entire room, because they have some cool features. Like when someone walks into your vision, it shows up on the screen, so it doesn't feel like normal VR where someone like pokes you and you're like, oh my goodness, someone's attacking. I think that's a cool feature, but then you go, okay, that's a lot of data. You have video and all of that, and then I go, continuing on this process, I go, okay, if I grab the video, that's a lot of data to send up. But then it hit me. They're looking in on the eye. The way it works is pretty freaking cool. Is where I'm looking, I'm moving a cursor. So if I look at this app, I can open it by just like going boop, and then it opens up. Imagine opening a website. And now I could pull analytics on where I was looking on that website. And then I could determine where would be the best place to put ads, because where does their eye go first? And those analytics are huge. And all of a sudden, like this now goes to the Ready Player One, where they're like, we actually found out that we can fill 90% of the screen without causing a seizure. And part of me wonders with this type of technology is Apple doing it specified, hey, privacy. There is still no laws requiring them to keep that data on the device. They stated that out front, and I think they're doing that because they know other devices are going to like later on do this. But there's nothing forcing them to do that. And this is going to tie back to the Reddit API in a moment.
That's a business decision by Apple, just to be clear, right? They looked at this and said, if we don't do this, we will be eventually forced to do this. So we should set the example that allows us the most permission without upsetting people, and which is really not the way you want the industry regulated, because you're always going to skirt this line of where do abuses happen and what should we regulate and what shouldn't we regulate. I'm not saying we should overregulate stuff, but like just recognize it for what it is. A company like Apple doesn't make a decision like that without for no reason, right? They're not going to make a decision in a benevolent way to make sure that the consumer is protected. They're going to make a decision because it sells more ice cream.
Yep.
Right.
I would agree
that's
with
the
that.
whole point. Right. So understand that Apple is not a benevolent entity. Apple is not a living entity. Apple is its entire purpose is to just suck money out of the consumer. That's what they do. That is what companies do. So when you look at decisions like that, don't look at them through, they're doing a good job with that. always look at them through why did they not make the opposite decision? It's because somebody there said, well, this will actually cost us more money in the long run. And if we don't do it, we'll probably be overregulated and it'll be a snapback. So we're going to protect our long-term profits instead. So I don't really, I do think Apple's doing a lot of things right in that regard. And I'm not so worried about that type of data on their side being used for ads to that extent. I don't know how much revenue Apple makes off of ads. And that's just a point of ignorance for me. I know that they shut down Facebook's revenue rapidly with some of their stuff. But yeah. So I think there's a little bit to be worried about there for sure. And I think that is part of the bigger problem we've just discussed about on this podcast a number of times. I don't want to relitigate it, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think the reason why this connected over to the Reddit thing for me is because I think there's oftentimes Apple and large companies which are established, have profit revenue and everything coming in is established. You have these other companies like Reddit who are not profitable. And again, I'm using this air quotes, are not profitable. Twitter not being profitable. Other ones because they build the platform and then they go, how can we monetize this? Mm-hmm. And I think Reddit and how they did it is interesting because I think Apple Vision goes, we have an established way of making money. We make money with software on this. We make money on subscriptions with this. The last comment I had actually before we jump to the Reddit is the thing that actually got me kind of excited. Again, no one's going to sit on the couch and watch this unless you're like single and don't have someone to watch TV with, which is fine. But is the immersive video experience. Like you're watching Star Wars and then it feels like you're sitting on Tatooine when the movie is on Tatooine. That's actually really cool. Like spinning back to my point, which was the Reddit API. So I think Reddit started looking at this and said, okay, and this is where it connects, is Apple may have a vision for here's how we're going to make money on this. Reddit went down this path of, I don't know how we're going to make money from this, but we've now built an ecosystem with moderators. Like here, we built a farm. We have volunteers planting stuff. We have volunteers who are running a dance and running this part of the field. And then they go, well, we can start charging for stickers because that's not admission, where that's not going to we'll start doing stickers. And then they're like, well, if anyone takes pictures and brings those pictures away, we're going to start charging for those. And then they're like, and they start adding these paywalls in where slowly they start adding them. What Reddit feels like what they did with this whole charging for APIs is it wasn't like this. They baited and switched. And how I think I connected this was with Apple Vision, they have, here is our TOS. We're not going to record your eye. That's going to be on device. It kind of has to be because of how the chip works. But we're not going to record the eye. We're not going to record this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And then all it takes is them just up, because there's no law stopping it. We're updating our terms of service to now we are doing all of those things.
Yeah.
Robinhood did it. We're not going to actually trade out. We're not going to use your shares to borrow out and then short the market. Update the terms of service. Just kidding. We are going to do that. Reddit. Yep. We're never going to charge for the API. Just kidding. We're going to charge for the API. And this seems to be a continual process that happens in almost everything. But when it starts hitting the API, that's when I think it hinders innovation and things like that. But like, it seems to be this cyclical process of we're not going to do this thing. Just kidding. There's no laws to prevent us. We're selling you a thing, and now we're changing it after you're using it.
So I like your farm comparison because we'll take the community mods on all of these different communities, all these subreddits that are often they're not paid. So they're often just modding and making sure that these communities are at least to some extent ingestible by humans. Otherwise, they would be spammed by bots. It would be unreadable. So what do? At first, they start, going out and they pick the crops by hand, right? They just weed out all the weeds and they just make sure that the good crops are good to go. And then they realize, the weeds are really getting out of hand here. So let's implement a couple of simple bots that get rid of, we'll have them follow these rules that we're seeing bots are able to, or don't have a good way of following because they're kind of amorphous and open to interpretation. So there's some closed source to some of these bots, and then we'll let those modding bots loose. And then we'll get, I use the Magic the Gathering subreddit. We'll get the card fetcher or whatever it is so that people can just easily reference cards and have this bot just pull up a link to some other website, right? And you look at all of this functionality, and I didn't realize how much functionality on Reddit was actually provided by bots. And I didn't really think about the implications of modding bots in particular. They're basically sending out these volunteers. These volunteers go build these machines that harvest and do the weeding for them in order to make some of these multi-million subscriber subreddits work in some way. And then the farm owners come out and shoot the machines, right? And they're like, no, go back to doing it by hand or pay us. You have to pay us to use that machine. It's like, you guys are, this is dumb. Like, I don't, and then they kind of, they went that far, then they walked back and were like, well, hold on, we'll let some things continue without paying, and then other things will not. So if it's they're getting into this wibbly wobbly of like, oh, now we're going to make some people pay, but if it's this type of bot, then we'll allow that one to continue. And it's just like, you have already shot the golden goose at this point. Like, it's bleeding out, it's on the floor, it needs to be resuscitated. People understand what the issue is. However, I will say this: I do think that people are overblowing. There's this blackout happening on Monday where like a ton of subreddits are just going to go permanently dark until they walk this change back. I think that people are going to be surprised how little the average person cares, but the average person is going to care when all of a sudden subreddits become completely unusable due to spam and bots. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
The one which hit me with this is I use Apollo. I've used Apollo forever. I've yet to use the actual website or the official app, I think, in years. Like the entire time, I think for the past 9 years on my main account.
I refuse to use the app.
Yeah, and I use Apollo. So here's the kicker. It's like when that goes dark, I don't know if I'm going to be really using it all that often. And I think my biggest use of Reddit right now is it was a good place to find valid data. So when I Google for a problem, I'd actually go how do I rewrite a Firebase rule to do X, Y, and Z or whatever it is. And then I'd go space Reddit because Reddit had the best information. Stack Overflow was kind of old with this new technology. And I do Reddit. But I found less and less that I'm doing that because I can use AI and use ChatGPT. I can use other mechanisms to answer the same question with the context with my own code. So I'm using that less and less of searching Reddit with Google. So now the only time I use Reddit is when I'm like catching up on different subreddits or anything like that on my phone. And I have a feeling what's going to end up happening is when that ends, I'm probably, my usage of Reddit is probably done.
Yeah, I mean, I use Reddit for headlines. And so the moment that the headlines are just inundated, I mean, like our politics is already garbage. It's already like all of those subreddits are just, they're already bot spam to, and all that stuff. So those are useless. But like tech headlines and a little bit of commentary from the average person on like, how do I feel about this topic or how do I feel about that topic, just to get a sense of where the zeitgeist is at a moment, is kind of what I use Reddit for. I'm not a power user by any means. I talk Magic the Gathering and Flesh and Blood stuff, things like that. Just like small hobby stuff. But like, I've never used the app. I refuse to use the app. And now this happened a few months, maybe even a year ago. If you go to the web browser on your phone and just go to the mobile website, you get a pop-up every now and then that says, would you like to use the app? And this is the kind of the breaking point for me. A bunch of these subreddits that I go to are going to go dark. And so I'm not going to have a reason to go to Reddit. But on top of this, they added this pop-up a year ago. And what happens, if you're scrolling through and reading a comment, this thing's on a timer. If you're reading a comment, it's a long comment, and that pop-up comes up, it scrolls you back to the top of the page. Right. So you could be in the middle of reading something and the pop-up will come up, and they do this on purpose. That's not a design flaw. That is on purpose. That is designed to annoy you in order to download the app. I refuse to use their app on purpose because otherwise I'll have to click yes to a TOS and all of that shit, and they can monitor me. And I'm like, no, fuck off. Just give me a fucking website to use. And nothing can be easy anymore. Everything has to be in an app, and I refuse. I refuse on the basis that I've said a long time ago. If you want to be secure, keep the minimal amount of applications on your system as possible. Download a video game, and when you're done playing it, get rid of it. all of these things, because like just having these things sitting around, you don't know what you're susceptible to. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I lost my mind yesterday. We ordered wings, and normally I just do it on my phone. I order right through the website, and they're like, "Don't worry, we have an app now which you can use." And they remove the functionality on their website to buy wings, and it's like, you're a local restaurant I order from once every few weeks. Well, I'm not downloading your app. I'm just gonna call then. So now what do? I call and put in my order, and I'm like, "Wow, that was well done, efficiency. Good job." Like, I don't need your app. I don't need it.
Yeah. And it's all just a way of harvesting users' data, right? Like that's the biggest thing. Like I'm half a mind to go download the app just to reverse engineer it and like just walk through exactly what they're harvesting, right? Like that it sounds like a fun, spiteful hobby.
I think it was funny, by the way, to tie it back to Apple Vision, during the announcement during Worldwide Developer Conference, they made a comment of Apollo. They said something like they're introducing widgets into the Mac OS.
Oh God!
And they said something. It's like, now you can open the Apollo app in your browser with the widget. It was like, oh, too soon. It was like during it. Oh God!
So let's walk this, and we're going to connect it to the next topic. So why is Reddit doing this? That's the real question. Why is Reddit doing this? They realize, and this is somewhat speculation, but I think it's pretty solid. They realize they have a treasure trove, a dragon's hoard of knowledge, basically, of crowdsourced knowledge on discussions on various things. And what could that be used for? Training large language models, right? It's regular human speech, it's conversations back and forth, and a lot of technical advice, even just hobby advice, things like this. They realize, and I believe the Internet Archive actually experienced this recently. They realized that the website was being harvested in all likelihood to train large language models, and I think they do have to, in some senses, worry about, one, the privacy implications of that, but also, two, how much cost is being placed on Reddit to serve as someone else's data gathering mechanism. And the Internet Archive experienced this, where a number of what do you call them? It's not spiders, but the web crawlers. Web crawlers went through the Internet Archive and pulled down so much traffic, it actually brought Internet Archive down. And in fact, it got to the point where I think they put out a call for help because they're presently in danger of shutting down due to the crazy costs that are being incurred. And there's other things that the archive is subject to. I think they're also in some legal battles for different reasons as well. But these large internet troves of information are being harvested to train large language models. And, in one sense, we're over here in the corner going, look at all these cool things ChatGPT can help me with. And on the other side, we're sitting there going, man, Reddit really wants to destroy our privacy. But at the same time, they're between this rock and a hard place, where if they don't shut down or charge a ton for these APIs, they're basically opening themselves up to be harvested. And if they do shut it down, well, then how do you maintain a lot of the functionality of the site? Although I don't really have a lot of sympathy for the Reddit at this point. I just don't care. because we'll find another platform, and
Mhm.
that's just how it'll work.
Man,
What are your thoughts?
on that so I have a bunch of thoughts on that. One of them though, if I was ever to start a social media, like if you had venture backing to start one, I feel like now is the time. It's not Mastodon. I'm sorry. I like the idea of it. It's a terrible platform. I'm sorry. I know that's like I'm probably upsetting like half people for it. Twitter's
Now
dying.
announcing Silk.ai.
But like, I mean, like, think about this. Twitter's dying. I feel it's dying. You have Reddit, which has like this death blow, which it feels like a death blow. And like, you have two massive communities looking for a place. And I'm curious what's going to pop up in the next like 3 to 6 months. Something is.
I don't know that necessarily there's going to be a hard replacement. I think that it's just as likely that all of these communities shatter in a number of ways and
Mhm.
slowly just go off into their own pockets.
You remember Dig?
You would
Dig's going to
say
come
again?
back. I said Dig is going to come back.
But the point being that when you look at these different social media applications, look at it from the perspective of a VC, or venture capitalist who's looking to invest in someone who wants to create the next Reddit killer, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of these folks are going to look at the history of these applications and go, when did they become profitable? And in many regards, they never became profitable.
Mhm.
Twitter got its golden parachute because Elon Musk is a fucking idiot. Seriously, like Twitter got bailed out of a lot of their bad decisions. Although Twitter was on the verge of becoming profitable when Elon Musk ruined that company. That's just a reality. Like he sank it by like 2/3 of its revenue, just went away, and it is definitely gonna die a slow death,
Mhm.
for sure. But what venture capitalist would look at look at any of a billion people that are going to say, aha, now's my chance to start up a new platform, and go, yeah, I'll fund that, when they have all of this trove of data that shows that these social media companies never really turn a profit unless you capture lightning in a bottle like Facebook did.
When I think though that's the kicker is I think that's where there is a place for something like a non-federated model, like Mastodon or something like that. The problem is like all of a sudden it's really feeling like we have one standard. We now have two standards. We now have three standards because there was Blue Sky, which didn't use Mastodon's protocol. So they have Mastodon. Now there's Blue Sky, and now there's like the third one, which was another like link aggregator, which is now another non-federated protocol. And it's like, okay, now guys, hold on. We were supposed to solve a problem, and now we have just like 8 more protocols, which no one else is going to learn because everyone wants to be a unique, like own the protocol. I think like going back to something you said though is I agree with something that it's probably costing Reddit a lot of money to do these APIs. On the other side of things, if I want to harvest all that data, I can just do a web scraper, which I can use HTTP protocol, and I don't need to use the API.
Yeah, but you run into there are ways to limit that now, right? Like Cloudflare is a good example of that.
Sure,
They do it.
you,
I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it does a decent job.
it does a decent job, but there's still like like if I'm willing to spend a little bit of money, sure, Cloudflare all of AWS traffic. Cloudflare
That's
all of
fair.
Azure traffic. Like that's the biggest problem with a lot of these. Oh, we prevent DDoS. It's like it costs me pennies to do a wide scale DDoS using AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, any of these, and you're just like, okay, you're done.
Right. I get it. And you and I are always going to be able to come up with the degenerate solution to bypassing these things. No, I'm serious. But like the average company out there that is going to go do web scraping for AI, it's actually not the average company that's going to go do this, because they could open themselves up to a number of legal issues. It's foreign countries that are trying to, kickstart their own laboratories and stuff like that to go off and do this research that are really going to be the ones that are problematic, because they just don't care, right? They're just like, haha, I'm flouting internet. There's no international law that prevents them from doing it, so they're just like, fuck it, just do everything that you're saying right now. And I think it's a problem, and I don't know the answer to it. I'll say that.
Mhm. I think like there's a treasure trove of data. I think the reason, and maybe it is like it was recently, I was looking at we'll say the AI in people's like doom and gloom. Like it's the end of the world. As I look at like OpenAI went before Congress and they're like, we have to put massive regulation. And it pissed me off because all of a sudden it's like people are like, oh yeah, even my father's going, oh my goodness, we have to regulate. And it's like, no, hold on. Let's see what happened. They built a massive, successful company where everyone's using it. And now that they've won the game, they're like, guys, we need regulation. We need regulation,
Yep.
which just stops everyone else from ever getting to their level. I think the kicker, though, is one of the things that gave growth recently, in which I started going, holy crap, this is actually dangerous. And again, this is me who's like, woo, like excited about all of this stuff. The thing which made me realize this is like, I don't know the fix for this. So I'm not like fart in the room and just like waft it your way and say, hey, enjoy that smell. I started digging into LangChain. LangChain is probably one of the coolest pieces of technology, which open source, all of that online. Coolest things. It lets you create your, so like, I'm going to try and use analogies to try and like demonstrate this. And maybe it's going to just fall flat on its face. Historically, if you wanted to, so OpenAI is good for general information. GPT-4, GPT 3.5, all of those are great for general information. General meaning like internet knowledge, all of that. If I want to have it review my knowledge base on my product, it's not going to have any of that information. That's specific information. And let's now say that's confidential information. Reddit, any of these things say, this is my confidential information. I don't want to give it to GPT-4. I don't want to give it my knowledge. What you can do with something like LangChain is take your private data, take that, start creating, we'll say, a model of that, which high level, what it does is it's, again, I'm gonna probably break down some of this, and even some of this I'm still learning, but it's gonna take all your internal documentation. Let's say it's your favorite foods you're describing. It's gonna say, apple, orange. Apple is the number 1. Orange is the number 2. Pear is the number 3. Up the word favorite appears. That's going to be the number 4. The word hate appears. That's the number 5. And then it has this whole number vector diagram of saying, okay, apple is connected with the word favorite 4 different times. Pear is connected to hate and favorite like 1 time. I now have this vector diagram of all my numbers. I can now share those numbers. And so I can now ask my model through LangChain, say, here is my prompt. My prompt is, what is my favorite food? It can grab the vector math, which it comes up with, share that with something like ChatGPT, which says, hey, like, here's the numbers, here's my question, here's a little bit of context. And now ChatGPT can respond back to your prompt, not knowing the original information, just knowing the connections, and give you data based off your private information without revealing anything. So in short, I can now take my private data, leverage something with a general information knowledge base, and get my own specific data. This is terrifying that it's become this easy, and here's why. Think about this so again, I'll pause here, and then I'm going to give you the doomsday scenario. Because do you have any questions, or am I going to keep going?
No, go for it.
All right. This is the thing which terrifies me. So I now have a way of stringing together general knowledge with specific information, and I can give LangChain, and this is like in LangChain right now, like things that other people have built. I now can say this, go hack Gowrie. Go hack him. Like just go, that could be my honest, bam, there it is. I have specific information. I fed it where I can say, here's who he is. Here's some of his address information. Here's some of this. Go for it. It now can go general information. How is hacking done? It can pull that and it says, okay, hacking can be done by phishing. It can be done by this. It can be done by this. Bam, it can be done by phishing. I now can go, how does phishing attacks work? Phishing attacks work by simulating an email to that person. It goes, great. How do I simulate? What's a thing I would simulate? Okay, well, let's go to the specific information. Who is Gowrie? Well, Gowrie's Reddit information is this, because I know I've connected that. That's my specific information. I fed it. It goes, okay, let's go search Reddit. for what he's been doing lately. Okay, bam, I can search Reddit. I can use the API, screen scrape, because and if it doesn't know how to do those things, I can now go learn how to screen scrape, build the software in a sandbox, tie it back to LangChain, run it within this Python code on my server because it's connecting these things together. It screen scrapes Reddit. It finds out what your interests are. It now goes back and now it can format an email. It can go to my private information and say, great, here's my credit card detail. Like I need to go set up a email service through SendGrid. Great. Use my private data to now set up the account because it knows how to set up an account because you can ask ChatGPT to say, how do I set up a new account on SendGrid? So it goes back and forth and it can start executing against, send you emails. But think, this is an example just for you. Again, I know I'm a little scatterbrained here. It sends an email. Did you click on it? Yes or no? Okay, great. Send it again. Rinse and repeat. Try these other things. And it can just automate that. I now can do this on a mass scale with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or 50,000, hundreds of thousands of individuals with almost I'm not going to say an autonomous AI, but with you leveraging this private data that I'm feeding it, along with that general information, I could string together mass cyber attacks. And again, this is not a doom and gloom. Like in some ways, it's kind of exciting because you can use that same knowledge to do good stuff too. But like combining, it is becoming remarkably easy to tie private information with general information and give it tasks. And there's tons of these models popping up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say something that might come off as condescending at first, and then I'll explain. This is a very interesting story, right? It is. It's a very interesting story, and I don't think it is an invalid worry. And I don't think, and I think somebody is likely to try to do something like this for sure. You know, every technology as, gosh, why can't I think of the name? Feynman, as Feynman said, you know, science is a key that opens the door to heaven, but can also open the door to hell. Right? Basically, with every invention, we can use it for good or for bad. And I you know, I can tell 30 stories like that off the bat, and so this is where I get into. Is the fear around AI really warranted? Or is it kind of overblown to the extent that what you're saying right now, all of these companies going to Congress and saying we have to regulate this are actually just trying to keep the advantage to themselves because they've already cracked it and they want to keep the small players out? Which I don't think is actually going to happen, even if they attempted to regulate it. If you look at the history of technology, technologists flaunt that shit all the time and just say, fuck it, right? Like, we're going to do it anyway. Like, it's not, like, how do you, it's such an amorphous task to say, when do you cross a capability line that turns an AI from cute into a weapon, that it's like, at what point do you start, you know, prosecuting people for flaunting this law? I don't know that they're going to be able to write that law. If that makes sense. You have something?
Yeah, no, my comment was, it's funny because if you go on GitHub, there's tons of people starting to build this type of chain together to actually do this. I think like my comment was, any congressional regulation and all of that affects big businesses like Reddit from doing something like this. Yeah. I think from individuals, it's not. And in no way am I saying they should regulate this, or necessarily that I'm fearful of this. It's freaking exciting that you can, with something like LangChain, you can do this out of your own home. Like, this isn't like I need supercomputers.
So the reason why I say that's an interesting story, that story doesn't frighten me, because those things, like, if you're telling me my personal information and the likelihood of me being hacked has suddenly gone up because of ChatGPT and these other AIs, I'm like, yo, we're all playing the shitty lottery. Like, all of our information is already out there, waiting to be leveraged by any number of nefarious actors. It's just who gets picked today to get fucked over, right? That doesn't frighten me. I've been living in that realm for 20 years now. It's a little bit nihilistic to think that way, but That's
Mhm.
where we are. That's not what frightens me. What actually frightens me is that story of the suicide, was it suicide helpline, or I think it was a weight problem helpline, fired a bunch of their call center people and replaced them with AI, or functionally chat GPT. And then chat GPT gave like the opposite of help. They basically gave them like what amounts to like complete triggers to cause relapses,
Oh goodness.
to people calling into this line. So, and that's what terrifies me, is people leveraging things like this without understanding the limitations of it. As a hacker and going out there, you can have a certain amount of slop and just not give a shit,
Mhm.
because like you're not going for a 100% win case. You're going for like a 1% win case. What terrifies me is people leveraging this technology for 99 plus percent win case requirements, right? Because it's really good at that like 80% being right thing. But when you start pushing above that and needing it to really tell the truth and really not hallucinate, you run into problems, because it's an imprecise tool by design. If we understood how it worked, we wouldn't have had to develop the mechanism that makes it work. That's just the reality, and I'm going to keep going back to that. And I want to talk about another podcast that brought this up. The former, I think it was chief business officer, CBO at Google. This guy's name is Mo Gaudat, or Godat. He was in charge of, or he oversaw some portion of the BART. Is it Bard
Bard.
project? And he went on this podcast called Diary of a CEO, which I watch from time to time. I'm not sure how good it is, or if it's mostly fluff, if I'm being honest. And he's basically on there sounding the alarm, to the extent that he's basically telling people, you should put off having children for a few years to wait and see how this falls out, as if anyone makes a decision like that based on AI, right? As if like 70% of kids aren't happy accidents, we'll say. Like, so he's on there sounding the alarm, saying that like everything's going to change in the next 15 years and we have no idea where it's going, and we need to regulate this, and we need to be ethical about it, and so many people are going to die because of it, and all these things. And he's on there, and he's very emotional, and I don't think this person is a bad person, right? I think he's actually legitimately very likely a good person with solid morals, and he's seriously worried about this. But I had to step back after watching that. I went through, it's a 2-hour podcast. I listened to it. I listened very intentfully. I took it all in, what he was saying, because he was in charge of this unit at Google. And I stepped back and I thought to myself, okay, he gets up here and he sends all these alarm bells. Let's put on our skeptic hat for a second. What should I question about this person as to whether or not he's the person I should listen to? And I went and did a little background reading on him, and I found nothing that's character assassination, just the fact that he's always been an executive and an entrepreneur. He's never been the person actively developing these things. When you're a person who's actively developing these things and understanding the periphery of the boundaries of what works and what doesn't work, if you talk to most AI engineers, they will tell you what I just said. It's very good at that 80-20 success rate to failure rate, but it's very bad at this 99% rate. And he pushed back on this on the podcast, saying that like, oh, for like 2 years, we tried to train a robot arm to just pick up a ball. And then finally, after 2 years, one of the robot arms picked up a ball, and I said, "Oh, that's cute." And then I came in the next week, and every single robot arm was picking up the ball just overnight. Like they all figured out how to do it, and that was the day I realized that we have a problem. And I'm like, right, but does it pick up the ball 80% of the time, or like 99% of the time? And are you putting it in a car, or are you putting it in a drive-through at Taco Bell to take somebody's order? Right, like these are, that's the stuff that worries me, not the, oh no, it's going to rapidly run out of control and become sentient and have feelings. I'm not worried about that stuff at all. So I stepped back and I said, okay, who is actually sounding all these alarm bells? very rarely do I hear engineers who are actively involved building these things sounding the alarm bells, other than we need to make sure that there's ethical usage of these things. That I hear from technologists. I don't hear this is going to run away and become general AI and take over our lives. You don't hear anyone saying that. So why are all of these business people and entrepreneurs saying it's going to go do that? Right? Why? It's the real question. Is it something they don't understand well? Do they have naive belief that we're headed towards a demon and freedom future? To quote to reference Daniel Suarez, like, do they just have this naive belief that everything's just going to barrel in that direction? Why? And I don't have a good answer to that question, but I had to step back after feeling like actually worried about this, and then remembering that ChatGPT still hallucinates about, like, ChatGPT can't do math.
Yeah.
Right. It can't. It just can't do math.
And and that's the thing is, I part of me goes, it just says it's sensationalism. Like,
yeah,
the CEO will get more time if he's like doom and gloom, it's regulate, and like those. I think that's part of me thinks that is why they're doing it. Like the CEO of OpenAI going before Congress saying we need to be super concerned about this because it's going to become sentient and take over the world and blah blah. Like, that sells more news. It gets more, because who doesn't want to
books too?
Yeah, who doesn't want to go to ChatGPT and try and take over the world because this person said it's capable of doing those things? Like, it sells this product, it sells that. The part which, as I said, I get fearful over isn't the, it's going to become sentient, it's going to become all of that, like any of those weird things. It's that it's two pieces. One, that whether we should or shouldn't, people are trusting, let's say, these large language models with the 99%, which opens for zillions of attacks. I think the other side of things is, as a pen tester, as security, I only have to find the 0.1%. Like, legitimately, in a 10,000 person company, I need to find maybe 2 individuals. Maybe 3.
Yep.
0.1%, 0.2%. And all of a sudden, I can build a tool which can get the 1%. It will fail miserably 99% of the time, but I that's fine. I fail 99% of the time. Yeah, I can still be successful. So, like, that's the paradigm. I think it's better for hackers than it is for general tasks.
I gotta ask you the question though, and then there's 2 questions here. One question is how many companies have you failed to hack in your career, that you've been asked to hack, that you failed to hack?
So that's a tricky question, because what does that mean?
Yeah, I know. You know what I mean though. You know what I mean though. Like,
I'm gonna say,
like,
but no. Let me
what I'm
answer.
saying is that within like a 2-week period, how many times have you failed to find a vector in which you could exploit in a realistic way to get into a company's email server or whatever, right?
So,
is it like a 70% success rate, and like then you find periphery things where you're like, well, in the degenerate case, I can technically do this, and that got me into your system, and it's like, yeah, whatever, that's not a real threat model, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
When we scope pen tests, they have to be scoped. This is inbounds, this is out of bounds.
Right.
Same thing as social engineering. Like, we're allowed to do this, we're not allowed to do this. It's very strict. I would say, though, for what the question you're asking, which is when you put your mind to hacking into a company, how successful are you? And I would say 100% of the time, able to get in. 100% of the time. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Longer tests take longer. When we scope, but here's the thing, and here's the statistic. If we scope it as a technical pen test, network-based services, you're not getting in. And the reason why is because if you're looking at 50 IP, it doesn't feel like a CTF, because it's not like CTF has a vulnerability. You're looking at 50 IP addresses. They're all AWS. They're all patched. They're all updated. There's no way in unless you find a 0 day. Within 4 days, you're not finding a 0 day in Apache.
Right.
I'm sure someone can. I'm not doing it. They don't pay me enough.
Right, the threat model there is on the level of like nation states, right? That's what you're talking, and that's not what you're trying to emulate.
The thing which continues to baffle me is every time we do a phishing exercise, we dumb it down. We purposely dumb it down and say, no, like, let's go Nigerian prince level email. That's what we're going to send. And I go,
And you,
I talk to my junior. I say, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way it's going to work. And he'll say there's no way it's going to work. But I've done it long enough to go, yep, nope, someone will click on it. Someone will click on it. And I expect 1 or 2 out of 100 people to click on it. And it's like 40% fill it out. And I like,
Yep.
what is the point of doing anything technical if we're still in? Again, that my argument here is it doesn't matter. The technical control should not be the individual. Individuals will continue to click, and that's not on them. That's fine. They should. If they're a help desk, their job is to help people. We should have technical controls in place on the endpoints. And I'm now ranting in a soapbox.
No, and so let me tie this back. Let me tie this back now, right? You just described all of that. The worry that you spelled out before in saying that, now I'm going to be able to use this private knowledge and automate this all is a matter of I can now scale. I can now scale my degenerate way of doing spearfishing in a much more effective manner because for all of those reasons, like the human is the weakest link in the chain, right? So from a hacker's perspective, yeah, I do think that there are things to be fearful of in regards to this general knowledge, right? Like you could put Chat GPT on the other side of a fake help desk and just make it try to gather people's information, and all of a sudden you don't have to have a human in India trying to scam people, right? Like this is where that's the stuff that makes it fearful, that I'm fearful of, is it's going to be used in unethical ways, either in a nefarious mechanism as we just described, or by like putting it in charge of a weight loss helpline that tells people to go kill themselves, right? Like that, like that. But seriously, that's a real problem. That's going to be the area of technologists not asking whether we should do something, just asking whether we can do something. And entrepreneurs saying, how can I cut jobs and save money? Well, I'll just employ this thing that will work 95% of the time and get somebody killed 5% of the time and not care. Right now, and you laugh, but like that's the real danger.
It's not even getting rid of jobs. It's spinning up new businesses. Like, look how many new internet businesses have been created just based off of AI. I mean, you can legitimately search for any task you want to do, space AI, and I guarantee there's like a SaaS solution someone's built on top of one of these. Like, I've been building that thing to summarize our podcast and the blog posts. And then I looked, and it was like there's like 8 different services that just do this now. You sign up, it's like $2 per post. It's like I'm not using one of theirs because I'm not uploading like 10 terabytes of videos to them. Like, it now exists. And I go, it's not getting rid of jobs. It's that they can just build these things, and ethics be damned. Like, because what ends up happening is it doesn't matter if I make a weight loss helpline, which tells people to go kill themselves, because I can just hide behind, we're using newer technology, AI, blah, 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 $2 a month.
Right. And because you clicked the I accept your terms of service button, that prevents you from being able to sue me and puts you in arbitration instead. Right. And it's not negligence because there was no human being negligent at that time. It was the bot, and you accepted the terms of service like that. This is where we get into the unethical application of things, especially in the realm of health. And so I think this technology is super powerful. It's going to go the direction that it's going to go in. No one's going to stop it. No one's going to regulate it. It's not that stuff's not going to happen. So I don't know. I just like, it feels like a whole lot about nothing to me. Like it's a useful tool, and it's going to cause problems, but so has literally every technology in the history of mankind. Like when we when we invented fire, we started burning people at the stake, right? Like every piece of technology has been used for evil, and it's been used for good, right? That we also use it to cook food and prevent mass famine. So it's very hard for me to get freaked out by it.
Yeah, I think the thing I actually do get freaking excited about is like, as I've been diving into LangChain, like there's like ingesters for it to pull in your own data, and there's ingesters for legitimately like everything I've thought of. There's ingesters for Reddit. I can just say, go grab this subreddit, rip everything down from it. And even with their new API, it's pennies on the dollar for an individual to pull down an entire subreddit. like, $2, $2.50 or something like that. I was looking at it, and it's like I can rip down my ingesters for any one of these things and pull it into my private data to now make a full-blown app off of private data, which then is connected with the general AI of ChatGPT or Hugging Face or any of these other ones. Like, that is exciting to me, that is becoming not like you need a 7th degree black belt in Python. Like, this is like copy and pasteable code to be able to do these crazy advanced things. Like, I don't know. I get weirdly excited because now all of a sudden, like, someone like me can do it without needing to call you every 4 seconds.
I think it's going to be super interesting. What actually falls out of it and becomes useful, I suppose we'll see.
Probably a good place to end it. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Silly computers return to monkey.
Thanks
Go
for
plant
joining
some
us.
trees, friend. Go put your feet in some grass.
I mean, with Reddit now API dying, I think probably 60% of the population will be able to get outside again. Thank you so much for joining us on Hacker Hangouts on a Saturday morning. Thanks for those in chat talking along. I did have to laugh. I did see Wi-Fi Addict asking about DEF CON 31. Yes, there will be much content, probably a good topic for another discussion. Thank you for watching as I fling my notepad off my table. Thank you for watching, and as always, hack on!